Hello and welcome back to nibblepop. Today's video is going to be on a very celebrated poem by W.H. Auden, Musee de Beaux Arts. This poem is widely prescribed in many universities and colleges across the country and the world. And today we will come to know why this poem is not just relevant in context of modern poetry, but relevant to our existence right now in the present world as well. Watch this video till the end, and if you have not subscribed, then please do so right now so that we stay connected and you can keep requesting for videos and I can understand what you need to continue your studies in English literature. Whenever we think about modern poetry or modern age in general, the most important historical event, or rather the pair of historical events which we must never forget about, are the two world wars. Now, when it comes to W.H. Auden, he was born in the year 1907, and therefore his formative years when he was growing up, he witnessed the kind of world which was ready to strike at each other, where countries were in clash with each other and world politics was evolving. So the country he was born in, England, that did not continue to be the supreme leader in the world, and eventually there was this destabilization of the whole political relationships between countries. On a personal level, Auden had direct experience of what happened during wars, especially during his stay in Germany and then his involvement in the Spanish War and his tour of China and Japan. He even worked very briefly as an ambulance driver and even as reporter. So he had this first-hand experience of how war affects people and how ideas of national glory, ideas of patriotism, these are basically built up to ensure political success of governments and not individuals. Auden himself described the time of the 30s, that is after 1930s, as a time of great anxiety and despair. As an aftermath of the World War, the First World War, there was, large-scale unemployment along with the rise of Hitler to power in Germany. In 1939, Auden, he moved to America and he became a citizen of America in 1946. And as in the case with T.S. Eliot, often there is a doubt regarding whether to regard him as a British poet or an American poet. The poem in question is particularly written as a response to a number of paintings that Auden saw in an art gallery. And while we will go through the lines of the poems, I'll try to show you the pictures associated with the lines that he wrote so that you have a clear understanding of what he's talking about. Eventually, you will have an idea about the theme of the poem. So let's begin reading the poem first. The title of the poem, Musee de Beaux Arts, if translated literally, it means Museum of Fine Arts. Beaux means beautiful, in other words, fine arts. So the idea is the poet is standing in a museum where he is looking at certain art pieces, more specifically works by Flemish Renaissance painter Bruegel, and he is reflecting on these art pieces and giving us some insight into what he feels towards them. Okay, so when we will read the lines, we should know that he is actually talking about some of the paintings he is looking at. About suffering, they were never wrong, the old masters. The old masters may in general refer to philosophers, poets, artists of ancient times, but here specifically it refers to the painters, the Renaissance painters who painted, and the museum, it was exhibiting a collection there. How well they understood its human position. Human position of what? Of suffering. So Auden says that the old painters, the ancient painters, they had a very good understanding of human suffering, and they understood that suffering was the very condition of existence. I mean, if you're alive, you're bound to suffer. How it takes place while someone else is eating or opening a window or just walking dully along. And these artists, they understood that while some people suffer, the rest of the world goes about in its business as usual. These actions, such as eating, opening a window, walking dully, these are very common mundane things that people do. They do not involve any kind of suffering, and they contain a kind of routine, a regularity, which human beings adhere to. Like while somebody is suffering, the rest of the world is going about its business. How, when the aged are reverently, passionately waiting for the miraculous birth, there always must be children who did not specially want it to happen, skating on a pond at the edge of the wood. Now he is talking about a specific painting. The first part of this poem is a general statement that he makes, and then he goes on to this specific painting, Census at Bethlehem by Bruegel. And while he is looking at the painting, he describes it as a scene where children are playing about, skating on a pond, and they do not have any idea that something great is about to happen. Now, what great thing is he referring to here? The miraculous birth. Now, when a Christian speaks about a miraculous birth, it's of course the birth of Christ. If you look very closely at the picture, you will be able to see a woman riding a donkey at the corner of the canvas, and we understand that this is none other than Mary. Mary, who is going to give birth to Jesus. And this was an event that was of such importance in the history of mankind. So far as Bethlehem was concerned, it was going to be, an epoch-making event. But who knew about it? The three wise men who came from the east, King Herod, who was very anxious to know about the birth because he felt that this child is going to bring about my destruction, because it was prophesied that the king of the Jews is going to be born. And because he was a king, he felt insecure. He wanted to get rid of this child. So while these aged men, while these grown-up people, they were waiting for this birth that was a magical birth, the rest of Bethlehem, especially the children of Bethlehem, they had no clue about the whole thing. And this whole scene is like a miniature of this whole world where something great might happen at the corner of the world, but the rest of the world is totally unaware of it. All right. They never forgot. Now he's coming to the second painting. They never forgot that even the dreadful martyrdom must run its course anyhow in a corner, some untidy spot where the dogs go on with their doggy life and the torturer's horse scratches its innocent behind on a tree. The Bible states how King Herod, he was very angry because the three wise men who were supposed to inform him about the child who was being born, they didn't do that, and the king got so angry he wanted to get rid of all children under 2 years of age, and he started sending assassins. And these murderers, king's men, they came, they were like these torturers, okay, they killed the innocent children. This whole scene, known as the Massacre of the Innocents, this was painted by Bruegel. And while looking at that painting, so it's the second painting, okay, while looking at that painting, he saw that the painter, he also painted some horses, some dogs, and these horses, they were hardly bothered about what's going on around them. They didn't have a clue to the kind of torture, the kind of heinous crime that was going on. And what was happening to these dogs and horses? Dogs go on with their doggy life, and torturer's horse. The horse belonged to the torturer who killed the children, but the horse was not involved in this. Scratches its innocent behind on a tree. And here, the first part of this sentence is dreadful martyrdom. Now, when it comes to Christianity and we think of martyrdom, martyrdom is when you die for a cause, you are a martyr, shaheed. So, the first martyr of Christianity, you think that Christ is the first martyr of Christianity, but these little children who were killed because Christ was born and Herod was angry, these children were the first martyrs of Christianity, weren't they? So, this martyrdom, this killing of the children, it had to happen, run its course, while these horses, these dogs, they didn't even understand it. In other words, when in any corner of the world or in just around you, people suffer and they suffer for a cause even, there are many people who are not even affected. And this is not the reality of a pre-World War or a post-World War generation. This is the reality of 21st century even, isn't it? We are unaffected. Every day our apathy grows. Apathy is the right word here, that we are not affected by people suffering around us. We can't even see those things anymore. Now, what is the connection between the two paintings here? The census, it was carried out by the order of Augustus Caesar. He wanted to impose certain taxations on people, and because of that census, Joseph, Mary, they had to come to Bethlehem. And this census then is happening before the birth of Christ. And the murder of the innocents is happening after the birth of the Christ. And therefore, it is as if one moment is leading on to another. And the children who were playing in the snow, they are going to witness a kind of massacre and they are unaware of it. So you see, however you might distance yourself from some suffering, from some great event, you might be, brought into it eventually. So we don't know if this connection was thought by Auden or not, but somehow when a painter is painting one scene after another from the Bible and showing as focus of the painting not the event which is basically the prime focus, like the birth of Christ or the killing of the innocents. So he is capturing those moments, but he is shifting the focus. Now, why is he shifting the focus? We will come to that after we complete the poem and have a look at the third painting that Auden is describing to us. Now, in case of the third painting, Auden actually gives us the name of the painting, unlike the first two where we are making some guesses here. In Bruegel's Icarus, for instance, the full title of this painting contains the word landscape. Landscape and the fall of Icarus. All right. And the word landscape comes before Icarus. How everything turns away quite leisurely from the disaster. Now, if you are looking at the picture, honestly, what effect does the picture have on you? On the first glance, it's a picture of pristine, calm, peace, where everything is in order. Nothing threatening is there. The sky is beautiful. The ocean is beautiful. There's a very good looking ship sailing away or maybe coming back from a voyage. There's a plowman who is going about his business. And there are some scattered human beings, somebody fishing, somebody just sitting idly. So this whole image is almost like a recreation of that Wordsworthian landscape of Lake District where everything is happy and satisfying. And then look closer. Where is the disaster? The plowman may have heard the splash. So there is a splash there, right? The forsaken cry, but for him it was not an important failure. The sun shone as it had to on the white legs disappearing into the green water. Now you will have to focus to a corner of the canvas to see that there are two legs sinking down and just like disappearing into the ocean. We can't even see the whole body there. And now you know what disaster he's talking about. So we should know about the story of Icarus. Icarus and his father, they were trapped in a maze. It's a Greek legend. And his father, he of course wanted to escape, and he made some wings out of wax. So they escaped the maze. And then he warned his son that he shouldn't fly too high lest the sunshine that melts the wings. Now Icarus was flying, and as it happens with teenage boys, and adolescents, they tend to ignore these warnings of elders, and he goes and up and towards the sun a little bit carelessly, and eventually the sun's heat melts his wax wings and he falls down from the sky. Now, if you were a painter painting this legend, okay, which moment would you capture? Usually, normally, people capture maybe the facial expression of Icarus, who is very shocked, who is feeling horror because he's going to die soon. Maybe the moment when his wings are a little bit melting down, the sun is very much angry because this man has the audacity to go towards him. That is usually the idea of us. We are normal people. We would paint the picture in that way. But what Bruegel did was amazing. He painted the scene right after Icarus fell into the ocean. And he shows that when Icarus is suffering, then the rest of the world is not at all disturbed by that. They do not register the fall of Icarus. And how do they behave? The ploughman may have heard the splash. So it is a little bit of distraction for the ploughman. The 4-second cry, Icarus must have cried out. But for him, it was not an important failure. It was not so important that he would stop his work and turn around and even rescue the man. The sun shone as it had to. Had to means the sun had no other option but to shine on. It is as if the sun is not presented as a particularly angry, godlike figure who wants to punish Icarus. No, it's something very natural. And the sun continued to shine on Icarus even after Icarus fell. And the expensive, delicate ship, note the word expensive, delicate. So this shows that this ship was probably a trade ship going on a commercial venture that must have seen something amazing. Now, ships don't see, right? People on ships see. So it's like the people who were on the ship, they must have seen Icarus falling, a boy falling out of the sky. But it was like the way we behave when we see something amazing on YouTube or TikTok. We just go to the next reel, right? That's what we do. And that is what these people do too. They look at the scene and they don't even do anything about it. And what do? Had somewhere to get to and sailed calmly on. So the people on the ship, for them, their peace of mind, their calm, their business purpose was so important that they did not think that this boy falling out of the sky was something that should stop them from going away. And they went away. So when we look at the three paintings, we understand one thing. In the first two paintings, in the first painting, the children are playing about. In the second painting, we have the horses and the dogs who are not reacting to the massacre of the innocents. But the children and these animals, they are not deliberately ignoring something. They are not aware of something. There's a difference. When somebody is not aware of something, then their inaction is basically innocence and excusable even. So we cannot accuse the children that why are you playing? You don't know Jesus is going to be born, because they simply don't know. In the second scene, We see that the horse and the dogs, they are behaving the way nature has made them to behave, just the way nature has made the sun to behave in the third painting. But in the third painting, the human beings, they are aware of something happening, something that might disturb their peace, but they choose not to react to it. Therefore, there is a similarity between the three paintings, but there is a major difference between the first two and the third painting. In the third painting, the human inaction, apathy is deliberate, it is their choice, and it is this choice that Auden is disturbed by. Now, um, when it comes to art, usually we consider artists to be capable of capturing truth. You know, Keats said beauty is truth, truth beauty, and Plato, he condemned artists because they copied from reality. In any way, we see that there is generally a tendency in art to be inspired by reality. And therefore, when Bruegel was painting these pictures, I asked this question back then, that why is he putting the focus point at the corner? Why is he not actually focusing on the glamorous, glorious part? That is because this is reality. In reality, there are two things happening here. On one hand, suffering is a very private experience. You do not experience communal suffering. Heroism is a very lonely path. So, no matter how unaware people are, people might not know what you are fighting for. If you are a hero, you will fight for it, you will suffer for it. And the second thing is, heroism is a very disturbing thing. It destabilizes order, it challenges existing appearance of peace, and people don't like that. They don't want to be distracted from their sleepy regularity routine, and they hate that involvement in suffering, because that might give you heroism, but it will challenge your daily routine. In all these three pictures, we have a parallel existence, a coexistence of extreme suffering and extreme normalcy. Because all these pictures, they are portrayals of life, of reality, and in reality you don't have separate moments but coexistence of suffering and normalcy. And it is usually seen that people who suffer are people who want to go beyond what they are expected to. You see, Jesus, he went beyond what he was expected to do. And even Icarus, I'm not comparing Icarus to Jesus, but what is Icarus's action about? It's about that adolescent urge to break the boundary. And when you break the boundary, you suffer. And it's as if the whole world is saying that you broke the boundary, so you suffer alone. We are not involved in that. So that kind of alienation, that is the fate, that is the consequence of any action where a person goes outside his limits, like Icarus, like Jesus. That person faces a kind of indifference from society. Jesus had to die on a cross, forgiving people for killing him. So now we might go all gaga over him. But that moment he was very, very alone. And even his followers, they were not strong enough to defend him. So the relationship of art and truth, that becomes very prominent in this poem, because all these moments captured through the artist's canvas gives us moments of truth. What kind of truth? The truth about martyrdom, the loneliness of martyrdom, the indifference of common people towards martyrdom, and how this whole thing affected Auden, whose 40 years of life had been through the wars. Now, Bruegel didn't know about world wars, right? Bruegel knew about suffering, about the reality of suffering, and he painted them. Auden knew about the world wars and he saw those paintings as capable of representing what he was feeling then. We don't know about world wars. We have not experienced it. We have experienced many other things though. And maybe we can relate Auden's poem to it. So this is the relationship that we are to look at. The relationship between Bruegel's paintings and Auden's poetry, and the relationship between Auden's poetry and our lived experience. If you can establish a connection, if you can understand that we also are in a world where people suffer and other people remain indifferent, we will understand what Auden is talking about. He is questioning this indifference. He is questioning this reality which was present even during the birth of Christ. And a poet's job is to question. I'm going to give you the exact words by Auden where he talks about the purpose of poetry. He says, poetry is not concerned with telling people what to do, but with extending our knowledge of good and evil, perhaps making the necessity for action more urgent and its nature more clear, but only leading us to the point where it is possible for us to make a rational and moral choice. So the job of poet is not to tell you what is good and bad, but to give you a perspective so that you make the right kind of choices. How does he give this perspective? Now, Auden, stylistically, is a modern poet and he is considered to be a representative modern poet. What is the most important feature of modern poetry? It represents reality not through any borrowed images, but through the images that they are living through. So now that you have seen the three paintings of Bruegel, why don't you write in the comment section which painting you liked the most and what are the things that you feel about this poem. So with this, we come to the end of the poem and our discussion. If you have any questions on any phrase or any word here, you can always ask me in the comment section. I would be very glad to help you out. If you want me to do any other piece by Auden, do mention that in the comment section. So till my next video, please stay happy, please stay safe. Thank you and bye-bye.